Welcome back to Quid Pros Quo. I'm Issa,
And I'm Rin.
and this week we're talking about drafting versus revision. So, these two things can often be conflated as we're all working on writing and editing as we go, especially. But we were thinking that we would just, set the record straight.
And distinguish between the terms, at least what they mean for us.
That's true.
Because writing is so different and it's such a unique experience to everyone.
Yes. However, drafting might be different for everybody, but generally revision has a little bit more specific connotations in the industry. Now, we are not going into what a professional editor, a copy editor is doing for you. Mm-hmm. This is specifically what you are doing as you write on your own, kind of,
Yeah.
Anyways, so when you think of drafting and revision, Rin,
yeah,
what do you think of? Like, you have something that is published,
I do,
available right now. So if you're thinking back to this project, in terms of drafting and revision, like, how much time would you say is taken up by drafting? How much time is taken up by revision?
It's hard to split in just drafting and revision because, like we talked about in our last episode, pre-writing is a big part of the process.
That's true.
So I would say, I don't know if I can do my math right. I don't know if I can add up to 100%, but let's do our best. I would say it's 15% pre-writing, then 60% drafting, and drafting includes first, second, third draft, however many drafts you do.
So you'd say 25%.
And then I think that's another 15%.
60 and 15 and 25.
Okay. 25. Never mind. I would give it 70% then because I was trying to add it up to 85 with pre-writing and drafting.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, so 15% pre-writing, 15% editing, and the rest, the other 70%, is drafting. I told you I would struggle with my math.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, and
excellent.
I think
You're picking what I'm planting. We are good. But I think it's often easier to think of drafting and revision on a smaller scale, like an essay, which I think is also perhaps more relatable to people because even if you haven't finished your first novel, you've probably written an essay for school or several essays.
Very true. That definitely is a more common writing experience for people across the board.
Exactly, and we want to be
writing a novel.
Relatable.
Exactly. Plus, I feel on a smaller scale, it's easier to see how the elements interact and drastic changes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I think of drafting, I think everyone thinks of a first draft, and then a lot of people just do a second draft and call it the final draft. I don't know if that's totally accurate. I think for Queen of Hearts I did 3 drafts.
That's crazy to me that you had so few. That's absolutely wild.
Yeah, see, I'm a chronic underwriter. I don't write enough, so a lot of my drafting and going back in is just adding in stuff and rearranging sentence structure and stuff like that. Because I know a lot of writers are overwriters and they have to go through and cut stuff down and they pare it back. But I just usually don't write enough. This NaNoWriMo project that I'm finishing up, it will be one of the first projects where I think I might be overwriting.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever overwritten on anything before. My pacing is always way too fast. So it's exciting to me. It's a fun experience. But what I'm getting at with doing multiple drafts is you need to rewrite to get quality improvements. We've quoted it on the show before. We're going to quote it again. Writing is rewriting. But I love rewriting. I think rewriting is so much more fun because it's first of all, you already know what's going to happen, so you're not agonizing over what your next word is going to be necessarily. But it really lets you dig into sentence structure more than anything else. And the way I do it is I will split screen my computer, and on one half I'll have the old draft, and on the other half I'll have the new draft. So it's old draft left, new draft right. And then I will literally type a new draft with the other one side by side, but I'll be rearranging sentence structure, I'll be adding in context, I'll be adding in set dressing, which is something I struggle with. I just find it so helpful to go through and do another actual rewrite instead of just going in and doing one word change here, one word change there, just like reading it and changing what needs to be changed. Like I think rewriting is just so much more effective, for me at least.
No, that totally makes sense. I definitely, when I think of drafting and revision, I almost think of drafting as just like the initial process of like putting everything down onto paper that I want. And then like I feel like there's some overlap of drafting and revision, you know, in my experience. Yes. Because like each draft and each version of it is a draft. And so technically, are you not always drafting? But to me, drafting kind of like has the connotations of like your first few rounds at it when you're still figuring things out.
Yes.
And then I'd say that for me, when I've revised things, sometimes it looks like a new draft, 100%. Yes. And like when I like go back through like my initial drafts, like wherever I'm at before I really switch into a revisionary mode, like I would say that okay, maybe this will be clear. So basically, I think that I go through several stages of like drafts and producing them, and I'd call that my drafting stage. And then once I've kind of like gotten what I want onto the page, then I can start looking at it to revise. And when I revise it, I go back to my latest draft, and then I'll be like, okay, is this working the way it is? Is there any part of this that I hate? And I think I look at big picture stuff first. If there's an entire unnecessary character, I will cut them. Yes. It might pain me a little bit, but I try not to get too attached to the first few drafts.
Yes,
because if I'm too attached, how am I going to move on, and how am I going to like make it better if it really does suck, and then I'm blinded by bias, and I do worry about that. But I tend to really look at big picture stuff first. I'm like, okay, does this plot line actually continue through, or is it disjointed and disappears like twice, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I might have like a few like notes of like, wow, this sucks, scratch this, like what were you thinking?
Yeah, I have then all in the margins.
And then when I revise, I'm like, okay, like now that I know what I've got, I want to like make it as good as it can be. And so that's how I kind of divide up drafting and revising. I'm like, drafting is like getting everything I want on paper, and revising is like making it actually like resemble what I'm thinking in my head.
Yes.
And like making it the best it can be, and making sure that everything like has like fallen into place. So sometimes that requires like another like 4 or 5 drafts. And for me, I know some people can like do like, you know, 30 drafts of something. Yeah. Which kudos to them. That is a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and sometimes it might be necessary, but you know, I think it's unrealistic to expect to walk away after the first draft, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And so like yeah. So when I move into revision, I will oftentimes do the painstaking technique where I open up a blank document with nothing else except what's in my head and what I've just recently thought about, and I will rewrite the entire thing, or by sections. Yes. Totally depends on the project. But oftentimes that lets like the parts that were memorable or important stay. And then if I have to build it back up again, then maybe I'm back to drafting for a bit. But I think of revision as any like big thing that I'm doing to like push everything that I have into the final form.
The cohesive form.
Yeah, and I'll never know when it's final until it gets there. So
yeah,
it's such a hard road to walk.
It is.
But I gotta walk it, and I enjoy it often.
I'm glad. I really like your definition of revising, because to me, I usually think of revision as smaller changes, not larger changes. For me, larger changes, I consider that rewriting. But I think it's so important that we have 2 different perspectives on the show here today, because, like, it shows, again, the diversity of our writing experience.
That's so true. And honestly, if you listen to this and you think, wow, neither of these things fit what I've done, and I'm not interested in either of them, but that's totally cool too. Because,
maybe we should bring you on the show.
Oh, 100%. I think
do want to do guests eventually.
More perspectives, I think, are better than less, especially in this, like, field where I feel like it's normal to have, like, this idea in your mind of, like, you draft again, then you, like, have this, like, final copy, you submitted it, they go over, you might make a few edits here and there, and then you're done. And that's definitely not how it is. And some people can spend 10 years writing something, even if a lot of that is just, like, conceptualizing. And some people can spend 3 months writing something, and they're ready to give it to a publisher to see if they're ready.
Insane. I was talking about this on the bus with a friend the other day. I was like, oh yeah, some, like, indie writers just write, like, a new book, like, every couple of weeks, and then they're, like, ready to put it out in the world. And I'm like, that's amazing to me.
You know, I will say that in the ebook world, for writers who are really, really into it, and that is their craft, they will continuously write and maybe, like, have a new book, like, every month, 2 per month that are new. And it's, like, a high turnover, and just, like, you know, they often write series, and you find this a lot in, like, the books that are, like, mocking, or, like, not mocking, but, like, you know, kind of like a parody of, like, popular things. There's, like, series of those, and they'll,
it's how, like, paranormal romance is, like, one of those really big emo ebook genres.
Yeah, and so they'll, like, take, like, maybe, like, 7 months out of the year, and they'll be releasing, like, you know, 14 books, and then they move on to the next thing, and they're ready to go because they just have, like, quick chops, and they're ready to go at it. Now, that is an extreme example, but I do know that a lot of, like, ebook authors, especially in the romance field, will be publishing, like, maybe 3-4 books a year. Yeah. And that's maybe a more normal rate of production than having, like, one every 2
couple
weeks.
Of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. But with high turnover like that, there's got to be some crazy, insane drafting and revision going on.
Yeah.
And
hopefully,
like,
if it's quality at least.
That's so true. That is so true. And so, you know, because there's such a variety of experiences, I am also glad that, you know, we are not the same in how we write.
Exactly. Yeah. And this isn't, like, a plug for you to compare your writing against anyone else's. Like, everyone is different, your writing experience is different, and your work is unique. So don't go around comparing yourself to, like, ebook authors who put out 2 a month.
Oh my gosh.
If you try and compare yourself to, like, what's the, like, other word for them? I really want to say, like, pulp writers, but I don't think that's right. Like, pulp fiction. Because the original origin of pulp fiction is, like,
those quickly mass-produced
books. So that might be the right word. I'm not sure if it's changed in our digital.
I know what you're talking about, but I also do not know the word.
Yeah, it might have changed in our digital age. But, like, don't be comparing yourself to people who are just churning out mass fiction. Because, and if you are doing that, that's great. But if you're not, like,
there's no worries.
Crafting something unique and something valuable, and you're bringing something new to the creative world, which is just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The diversity of the process is just one of the things that makes writing so accessible.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
just as an outlet and not as a career, like, you know.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps us up for the day.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, revision and drafting are essential, and it is okay if you have to set aside a piece before you get into deep revision.
And if you struggle with revision and rewriting and drafting, that's okay. It's a learning process, and we're all going to get better over time.
Okay, so this has been Quid Pros Quo, and thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us next week when we talk about writing queer characters.